All right, hello and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club. I'm Tobias and this is Will. We're your hosts this evening. Together we have a number of curious and exciting topics to share with you.
As attendees of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club, you are all now members, provided you adhere to our philosophy. Ex curiositas scientia. We pledge to learn without prejudice in pursuit of our mutual goal, perpetual noviceship. We admit that it is impossible to know anything about everything about anything, and thus we remain perpetually curious and perpetually novice.
This is our flag and our mascot, Franklin. The lightning bolt represents the receipt of knowledge, the enlightenment of illumination, the resonance of truths understood. It awakens and excites us and makes us hungry for more. And now let's give a warm Curiosity Club welcome to Andi Kovel.
I thought you were introducing me. I'm supposed to do that? I'm actually going to start off and just kind of give you an idea of what it's like at the shop and what we do, and then we'll get more into it from there. Sparking it right now. Oh, volume. I still love that video. Every time I see it, I'm like, that is so cool. So I'm Andi, and let's see, I pushed escape. I'm owner and co-founder of S Studio, and I'm going to take you through just kind of like a brief history of where my partner and I came from and kind of how we got to where we are now and why we got there, and I think that's kind of like the interesting part, but you guys can ask questions or stop me at any point on the way. So let's see, this is a recent piece that we did at the W in Seattle, and I thought that was going to be the background image while I started talking, but then I realized I should show the video, kind of to let you guys know what we do. I think that I just click. Okay. Or I'll just do this. And then I just have to adjust this for a second. So this is actually a really old picture of Justin and I. We started blowing glass in Brooklyn, or I did. He actually started in California. I'm going to sit. And so we met in Brooklyn in probably, I'd say, 97, 98. And we started working together immediately. And this is a picture of us from back in the day, and we actually met Laurence there as well, and she and I took a glass blowing class together. We were partners making goblets with Jeff Zimmerman, and I was horrible. And I actually still have like the only one I pulled off, I think, the entire glass. And my friend was drinking out the other night, and I was just like, we don't drink out of that one. You know, like, that's the only one we've ever made. That's awesome. So anyway, let's see. So we met, we worked in Brooklyn and met at Urban Glass, and I was studying museum education, and I was looking through the Parsons course schedule. Hey, yay, this is my sister. My hero. I brought your decanter. So I was studying museum education, and I saw that Parsons had a class on glass blowing, and it was taught by Thor Bueno. And I was like, glass blowing 1, Thor Bueno, like no brainer, I have to take this class. And I had no interest really in glass. I just was wanting to have like another tool as far as sculpture goes, like another medium to work with. So ended up going there, and I think I was around 28 years old, and I was a woman that's short and left-handed, and it's super male-dominated. And I just like immediately really liked it because it's super athletic, and I like moving and with my body, working with my body, and working as an artist, you work a lot alone and isolated. So I really like working like with a team. So I ended up meeting Deborah, and this is Deborah Tresco, and that's her work on the right side of her. And she was actually pretty amazing as a mentor because having a female mentor, all the guys would be like, you sure you got that? And Deborah would be like, come on, Kovel, you fucking got this. You know, she's like, you got this, do it. And I'm like, Deborah said I have to do it. So, and everyone else was like, you know, are you sure you're strong enough? You know, but so anyway, I had to fight really hard, you know, being in New York for every opportunity I got. So we're a little scrappy and worked pretty hard, and moving out here kind of worked out pretty well. And it says, met Laurence at that time as well. So during that time while we were in Brooklyn, we were mostly working as glass blowers for hire. And so we would be hired by fine artists, and they would draw something, bring something in that they want us to make, and we'd make it for them. And so this is a piece by Tony Ausler. And I think the question that people brought up a lot, but that wasn't really like that prevalent to us, was like, whose work is it? You know, they're designing it and drawing it, but we're making it. They literally don't touch it. And they sign their name on it at the end. And to us, it was like completely obvious it's their work. You know, like it's really traditional in glass that you have a gaffer or maker make the pieces, and it's not their work at all. And so I think because we had no input in the design, and I mean, I guess ultimately you do, because we're telling them, you know, you can't make it this way, but we should make it this way. So we're influencing the technique, but not necessarily the design, or not at all the design. And this is a piece we did for Maya Lin, and this is about the time when we had the idea that we could probably come up with more interesting things on our own. Not to heckle Maya Lin at any level, but we're like, wait a minute. They're getting paid a lot of money, and they don't even know how to make this, and this isn't even that cool. So anyway, no, Maya's amazing, and it was a really beautiful piece. It's just, it was subtle. But we worked for artists like Jim Dine and Robert Rauschenberg, Robert Gober, who was one of my favorites. Were you there when he came through? I like followed him around like a puppy dog. I was like, how do you do it? What do you do? How do you do it? And everyone's like, why is this person following me? So, but we worked also for Matthew Barney, Charles Long, Fred Wilson, Kiki Smith. This is some work that we did with Kiki. And actually, Justin and I both worked on these with Jonathan Christie, who's a close friend of ours who just passed away recently. So kind of made me sad thinking and seeing these. And I think actually, don't you have one? You know,
I have a teardrop.
You have a teardrop. I almost actually showed the teardrop and said, my sister has one of these. I've got one of the egg yolks actually at my house, and it's really funny because it's like, I don't think anyone would stop and look at it and be like, is this, you know, I don't know. Anyway. So we came to the decision that we should probably be doing our own thing. And so we were both really interested in design, modern design specifically. And we also just saw there was a hole in the market. Like there wasn't anyone making fine art or making glass that was not like art glass. So this is one of our most iconographic pieces. It's the water drop jug, and we sell it at Design Within Reach now. But actually, the first picture that I showed of Justin and I in the studio, that we were in front of a pile of those. So we've been making those for a long time. And at the time, glass kind of looked like this. So we were like, oh wait, no one's doing this. Everyone's doing this. And so, I mean, there are a few people doing it, but they're doing it under their own names, and it's a little bit, we decided to build a company around it. So this piece is actually the first piece that I ever had in a showroom. So we had the idea of like starting Ask and of doing, product, and the whole idea of doing product in a production line was that we eventually would be able to make enough money that we could make fine art again. So we kind of thought of this as like, it's a great idea to go to work, and this is what we'll work on. So this piece was a light that I did, and this was in Surface magazine, and this was actually the first store I was ever in was, I wanted to ask you, Totem? Is that what it's called? Okay. I couldn't remember, and I couldn't find anything about it online, like it had vanished. But it was Karen Rashid's store back in the day. And so actually, my sister was like, you should see the store. And I went there, and I was like, oh my God, this is like totally my place. Like I saw it, and I was like, this is my people. This is where I belong. So I called, and I got the name of the manager. And I showed up the next day carrying this piece in my arms. And I said, is Brian here? And they're all like, oh my God, what is that? So they all swarmed over and were looking at it. And they're like, he came out. And they're like, we love it. Like, do you have anything else? And I was like, I happen to have a trunk full of stuff. So that was how I got into my first showroom. And which I think, is interesting. But, that just, like, I just knew that was my home. Like, I found my place. And I wasn't, like, trying to imitate or copy or, like, follow somebody else's place. And I just, when I saw it, I was like, this is home. So, yeah. So that was that. And then, so then we were selling in New York, and we started doing trade shows, and we were selling product. We ended up moving out to Portland in 2001 to start our own studio, and that was just shortly after 9/11. So it was like November 2011 or 2001, September 11th, and it was like, Armageddon in New York. So we kind of ran with our landlord chasing us, and ended up here. We had no money, and it was kind of, so we ended up building the studio to kind of keep going with the product line. And we started the studio, we built it from scratch just in this warehouse. So it was kind of interesting because there was like a lot of decisions that we could make as far as, what equipment we wanted to put in there. And so we wanted to go like as green as possible. Because I just feel like as far as green technology, like you're either like choosing to buy new paper or you're choosing to buy post-consumer waste paper. Like they're sitting both in front of you, and you choose one or the other. And we felt like it was as simple as that. It wasn't really, we didn't think too much about it beyond that. So this is another studio shot. And, well, these are some of our tools. And the tools are all pretty much like the original tools that all glassblowers throughout history have always used. And there's been people that have tried to modernize, revolutionize them, and they just, bless you, they just fail. Like they just don't, it's too complicated. And the simplest, most bare-bone tools kind of work the best. And I actually brought some here for you guys to play around with. But if you bend them or toss them, it's like, you're dead to me. I didn't tell Justin I was taking them, so. I know, he would. I was like, I'm taking these. This is a picture of the inside of our furnace. And our furnace is electric, and it runs on, well, electricity, but those are chromoly. More specifically, the elements in there are made of like chromoly. They're totally crazy, and it's 3-phase. So we need, basically, all I know about 3-phase is that we need 3 cans on the pole in front of the studio. So it took us a while to find the studio with the 3 cans, and we did. There's somebody probably knows how many wattage. I don't know. Justin knows. And so we have 0 CO2 emissions from our furnace, which is amazing, and it's also really well insulated, so it's around 10 times more efficient than a gas furnace. And then we purchase wind power from Pacific Power. We recycle our clear glass back, and we use the biodegradable peanuts, collect rainwater, all that stuff. We do what we can, but we got a lot of attention in the beginning for being like super green or something, and we just thought, I don't know. It was more expensive to buy the electric furnace, but it would save us money in the long run, you know? It was like one of those things. Okay. So let's see, what I have on here is, so I guess this is, I just wanted to show a little bit about the process of glassblowing, which you saw in the video, and then I have some examples of kind of where we went with our career from starting off as glassblowers to hire to product line, and where we ended up and why I think that's interesting. So when we're hand blowing glass, we actually have a melted pot of like 600 pounds of glass in the furnace. And so we're literally like hand making things, and you know, like everything's a little bit different, and we use molds here and there, but when we do, I'll show you later, but we usually like blow part of it in a mold and then finish some of it by hand. And I think it's important for us to differentiate ourselves from factory glass, because they, you know, they beat us hands down. Like, it's much cheaper, but like what makes our glass different than factory glass? We can make it thick, we can make it off center, we could make it irregular, and the factory glass is all the same exact and usually thinner. So we try to kind of accentuate those qualities. So I have, let's see. So speaking of using molds, I have kind of a process shot. This is, we're using a rotted out tree stump as a mold. So we're blowing the glass in there, and then actually the rotted out part ends up having the same texture as bark, strangely. So it's kind of really beautiful. And this process is kind of fun because we go in with the glass molten hot, and sometimes it gets stuck to the wood. So we have to like kind of push me, pull me. We ended up kind of struggling to get the glass free, and it doesn't always work out, but it's pretty dramatic anyway. So the next shot is, it's kind of coming out and on fire. And I actually think I messed up. This one was supposed to come next. It's out of order. So yeah, it's kind of like everything's on fire, and it's kind of exciting. And then it comes out. I just love this sequence of photos. And then that's the finished piece. And this is called Log, which was inspired by Ren and Stimpy. We occasionally have I have this one piece that's called the Sleeping Bird, and I've been asked by press before, you know, what the inspiration was, and the inspiration was Dumb and Dumber. Like, I hate saying that. I'm like, it's from Dumb and Dumber, and you know, the kid, like, they give him the dead bird, and he's like, pretty bird, and petting the bird, and please don't print this. It's so dumb, it's smart. That's all I'm saying. So that's sort of an idea of the product line, and we like to think of what we do as a bit of like a lifestyle thing too. We spend a lot of time out in the studio, and it's a really great space for throwing parties. And so we throw dinner parties and taco parties, and I don't know, we cook out of the glass equipment and have chefs cook out of the glass equipment. And this is actually a sequence of images that was from, we started off doing these suppers with Ripe, which was Clark Lewis, which was Naomi and Michael, and I think these are actually pictures from what we like to call the Last Supper, and this was literally the night before the end of collaboration. So, but it was the events were completely amazing, and so you drive out to St. John's, and you know, everyone's like, most people I think haven't even been to St. John's, and so we're near the Schnitzer Steel Yard and Pier Park. So it reminds me of Panama in a way. It's like super old growth forest and then like crushed cars, and there's a bunch of containers in the back from us, container yard, and there's like magnets that like pick up containers, and if it stacks it right, you can see Mount St. Helens, which is pretty cool. So, you know, it's a super urban and like weird atmosphere, and people come in and there's like music on, and tables with tablecloths. What are you guys talking about?
That's not nice. I've never seen this.
So here's Naomi getting some stuff ready, and so what we would do is we would blow glass in between courses, and so they'd cook, and then they'd eat, and while everyone's eating, we'd blow glass. And Kim had been to a couple, if you remember that.
Yeah, kind of.
You do, kind of. So
Not that one in particular.
no. So here we're doing, we're like flambe? Sounds reverse. Flambeing dessert, and it was like mango something or another. So I was ladling hot blobs of glass onto our metal marver, and then Michael was cooking on the molten glass. And lots of fire and Gus Van Sant in the background. gotta throw that one in. And Gus was like, "How do I know there's not glass in my food?" I'm like, "There's not glass in your food." He was a little nervous about it. So that's kind of the lifestyle thing. So this brings me kind of into, so we started off doing like glassblower for hire, and then we were doing our own product line, and then we started doing a lot of collaborations, and we've done a number of them, and some are more successful than others, and the collaborations have sort of led us to what we're doing now, and which I'll get to. But so I just want to show you a couple collaborations, and this is with Harry Allen, who's an industrial designer who lives in New York, and he's a great friend of ours, and we actually just met him at one of the trade shows, and he was like, "I want to work with you guys." So we ended up coming up with the lighting and kind of accessory line with him, and I thought they were really like interesting. The scale, that's probably 48 inches tall. Sorry. Or not 48. I'm lying. What's that? 330. Okay, sure. And so for this one, the cages are all put together, and so Harry designed the cages, and Justin and I, designed the glass. And what I thought was interesting was when you have these linear and box shapes that when you blow into them, they still create round shapes. And so, people have done, blowing glass in the metal before. It wasn't like that groundbreaking, but it was kind of clean and modern in our interpretation. So we ended up kind of pushing this a little farther along as we went. And so this one, Justin and I each have our own bubble, and we're blowing glass simultaneously out of the same glory hole. So like he's heating and then going to sit and blow, and when he sits and blows, I go to heat. And so it's like super all about time. If the timing's wrong, it's like just kind of chaos. And so I think Harry named this piece Jailbirds. He named them all like different funny names. So this was the Jailbirds piece. And so then, not only are we blowing them in, and so I end up starting mine, and then Justin goes in second, and then when I'm ready, I break mine off, and then I grab my gloves, and then Justin finishes blowing his, breaks his off, and I run and put it away. So then we also have to like polish the lips of those, which Justin does, and I'm glad I don't have to do that part. But I like those pieces a lot. This is a cat house, and this is we did this with Compressed Pattern in their local interior design group, and they also did a product called Cat Bank and some other cat-related products. This was really kind of just like more of a fun thing, and we ended up actually meant to bring it, but I forgot. We're in a book that's a hardcover coffee table book called Luxury for Cats, and that was kind of like big highlight of my career. It's just like the funniest when you see this book and it's so kitschy, and you're like, what is this book? And then you're like, oh my God, you're in it. What's that?
You should put it on Reddit. They love their cats.
On Reddit?
Yeah.
I'm a dog person, but I get it, Like I like cats. I enjoy cats. I just don't want to live with it. But yeah, so it would be good to, I don't know. People have talked about buying some of that stuff, but this was probably our most recent collaboration, and the last one I'm going to show you. And this was with Travis Harvey, who was a designer at Nike, and then he was Number One Son was the name of his company, and now his company is called Travis of America, which is kind of great. And so we did this whole like barbarian line, and it says there, that was called the Borealis. It was also based on supernovas and the atmosphere. We kind of got really heady about like what this was all about. But it says there, revival of the fittest. Now that survival is out of the way, what's next? So we were thinking about like the contemporary urban barbarian, and like now that everything's so technology based, that we wanted to like take it back to like what is like the first cup you would drink at, like what's the simplest cup, what's the simplest, like how do we take everything away with keeping drinking as a focus of the whole thing. So that was I think I wanted to show this too because I think that this was like one of my favorite lines that we've ever done because it was super cohesive and everything was really thought of. And I thought the marriage of the leather and the glass was like just really beautiful and kind of unexpected, especially the scaling. We played with scale a lot. But I think that collaboration has become really unsuccessful because you kind of If they're successful, you're not compromising ideas. Your ideas are being fed, and when they're unsuccessful, you kind of feel like it's like it would have been better if, and it never really gets to that. So sometimes the concepts are watered down. In this case, I don't think that was the case, but I do think that was time consuming. Like once we made the glass, and we have to hand it to the leather guy, and then it's like lead time was like 8 to 50 weeks, Jill was working with us at the time, 8 to never weeks, and so it's also to take your reputation in orders that you have and say, well, we did our part, and then give it to someone else, hand it to someone else is kind of nerve-wracking. But then you also have to pay 2 people or 3 people. All of a sudden, there's not. All of a sudden, the pieces are really expensive. So, we normally don't sell as much of the collaborative work as we'd like to, and I think because it gets expensive. So, in general, they're just kind of like, they're fun, and it's explorative, and it's kind of nice to like have someone else's influence and think about things in a way that you wouldn't have, and to be pushed, beyond your limits that you don't even realize that you have. So the next stuff I wanted to show you was, so after doing our online and then doing the collaborative work, I guess I decided about a year ago that what I really want to be doing, well, not really want to be doing right now, but what I want to be doing in the future, in 5 what I really want to be doing is skiing. But what I want to be doing with my career is, I've been thinking about, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and I think it's really important to do that for, whatever your career is, because I think the most important lesson that I've learned is that you don't want to be dragged behind your career, that you want to be pulling it with you. And so I think a lot of that means kind of slowing down and trying to do less things rather than more, which seems like you're getting less done, but you actually get more done because you're doing more, less things with more intention. And so my intention, I decided about a year ago, was that in 10 years from now, I want to actually be doing designing for other companies and other people more than making my own work. So I'd prefer to be working with companies, drawing, designing, maybe doing the prototype, and moving on from there. So with that being said, this was one of the first times that we had worked, I'd worked. I guess we did. We did. I designed it. Jess and I made it, doing freelance product design, and this was for Ralph Lauren. And you can see this is just like I found this sketch randomly. And I like it. It says, "I like this one," which ended up being this. Does that look like super almost all white to you? It does. Okay. There's over contrast. Anyway, it looks better here, but this is actually the worst photo. It was before we were working with a professional photographer. So this is probably back in 1999, 2000, whatever. So anyway.
Just like pure, just transparency.
It's almost not even there. If you just squint, you can barely see it. So we did that with Ralph Lauren, and I just wanted to show you a couple things that we've done sort of in that vein. And this was also back in New York, and this was at Donna Karan. And I was invited to be part of an emerging designer exhibit, and they loved our work so much that they kept us on, and we ended up I designed this line for them. And this is also a really bad picture before professional photography. Not before it existed, but before. We thought it was really important. I was like, I could do that. I've got a camera. And actually we were just we're in Town and Country magazine this month, and it says their clients include, and it says Donna Karan, and I'm like it was so long ago, and I just hope that she doesn't read it, 'cause she's gonna be like, I don't know if she remembers this at all, or that at all. So this was a recent collaboration that we did this spring with Bushmills and Jeff McFetridge. And here we were similar to, making work for artists in New York, where we came up with the solutions and influenced the design as much as we, told them what would work best and what wouldn't work best and how to make it work best. So we came up with this, and so it's really Jeff's design, and But Jeff, as far as the designing went, he drew, you know, on a piece of paper in a singular line, like 2 hands. And I meant to bring his original drawings, but I forgot. And that's all he did. So, you know, and then we ended up with this. So, I mean, I feel like, you know, we really worked on it. And here we actually had our name included. So it says, for Bushmills, Jeff McFetridge plus Esque, which was, I think, a big feather in our cap as far as having the idea of like wanting to design for other companies and then having this as my first one. So I really kind of fought hard for it. The woman who arranged it from Cornerstone, you know, asked me, and she got some information, and then she came to visit, and she said, you know, I just wanted you to know, like, we've asked a couple other people to bid on this as well. And I was like, well, who'd you ask? And she's like, an artist from LA. And I said, Joe Cariotti? And she said, yes, Joe Cariotti. And I'm super competitive when it comes to work, you know, not really in other areas. And I said, you know, Joe's great. He's a really good friend of ours. We love him. His work's really good, but you're not getting the name. You're not getting the audience. And, like, nobody knows who Joe Cariotti is. You know, like, what's this doing for you to, like, hire Joe? And I said, you know, if you work with us, we can co-brand it and put it on our website and blah, blah. And so she was like, fine, it's yours, you know, like right at that minute. So as soon as she said that, I was like, I'm not letting anyone take this. But he is a really good friend, and if it was like his job, I wouldn't have stolen it from him. I just felt like it was our job. You know, if they were like, had gone to him, he's like, I'm working for Bushmills, and then they asked me to like underbid him, I never would have done that. So
You just did a better job of selling.
I was, exactly, yeah, exactly.
Did you make a production run of these?
We did 75, and we still have, I think, 12 left.
Was it just a limited edition for their whiskey or their...
It was, yeah, and it was mostly just like kind of a self-promotion thing, and Bushmills is trying to reinvent itself and become more current and younger and hipper. So they've got now like a group that they call Friends of Bushmills, and they're musicians and actors and artists and stuff that have all like are endorsing Bushmills. So they're using them in campaign ads, like Elijah Woods is one of them. I'm not really sure who else are the ambassadors, but so they're really trying to latch on to like the now generation, because I think that, you know, they were losing their audience, and I think it worked well for them. They're pretty happy with it. And,
really nice piece.
Thank you. And the only shame is that it doesn't come with whiskey. Like, it's literally a decanter. And so I had to add that to the website, because one of my friends bought one for her dad, and she's like, you can't wait to drink it. And I'm like, you can't ship alcohol, you know, without being licensed. So it comes empty. But I thought it was really well done, and I was going to bring this piece and the mold and such, but I didn't. I brought a different piece, but we took it all the way to, I thought it was great how we took the intention to like the packaging of it.
So with this piece, how much of it was the mold? Was there more stuff afterwards that you did for each one, or was it just blown straight into the mold?
That was just blown into the mold.
Okay.
Yep, and then we punnied it and finished them. So they were pretty quick. The only thing additional that we did do was the caps, our Bushmill caps, and they're black plastic, and I gold leafed all of them.
You punny? What did you say? Punny?
Yeah, you switch access. Like, you blow from the pipe,
okay,
you know, a vessel like such as this.
Mm-hmm.
So the pipe would be here, right? And so then this is all finished except for this part.
Right.
So you switch access and you put it onto a solid rod. That's called a punty. And then you can heat up and finish the lip of it.
Gotcha.
So it was a little bit challenging because the mold was made out of graphite. We had a 3D CAD drawing done, and then we had it CNC routed, and so it was kind of a complicated mold, and the details were really fine on it. Such as, this was actually one of the bigger details on it. There's a part on the back that says like distilled, and you know, all of the markings, and they were just so finite. You know, you could barely see them on the mold, and we got the mold, and I was like, this isn't gonna work, you know. And I called the mold guy and I was like, we want you to take these back and like make these deeper. And he said, well, just grab a Dremel and do it yourself. And I was like, they just paid $5,000 for this mold. Like, no way in hell am I taking a Dremel. Like, we're like, you know, like, don't drop the mold. So yeah.
So with the graphite mold, you don't need any vent holes.
We actually had a couple vent holes. I don't know that we needed them necessarily. But we also did, I don't know if you can see in the bottom, he also left like the mold came, to the bottom of this, and then there's a plate that it sits on. He actually left like a little bit of space there so that it would vent from the bottom. But what I thought was actually interesting, and Laurence is an expert mold maker as well. In my eyes, she's like really good mold maker.
4,500.
What's that?
You should have underbid them.
I think we were trying to do that, weren't we? We were talking about that. But I thought it was interesting because where the lettering and the numbers were, there wasn't any vent hole, and then we got the detail, so that was kind of like a press mold almost. But there's the mold that I did bring is kind of interesting too because we don't have any vent holes in that one, and that one's acting more like an optic. We're like, well, in an optic mold, it doesn't make any sense to any of you. In an optic mold, there are no vent holes, and so like if you're doing something like making bumps like that, if you had vent holes, you'd think they'd be at the top of each bump, and then they'd look like nipples more, and it wouldn't work. So, yeah, there was no vent holes.
Did you get to keep that mold?
Yeah, we still have the mold.
Nice.
Yeah. I was actually going to make, well, it's funny because we did, it's an edition of 75. So I wouldn't, break that. It would be super lame to make more than that. But then there's also things called artist proofs. And that's what you do first, and you make a couple artist proofs and you send them to the client, and everybody kind of signs off on them. And then usually there's a couple of them in each edition, and usually the designer, the artist, the maker each gets one. And here we had 6 or so artist proofs, maybe 10. I don't know. There's a number of artist proofs floating around where I was like, I can't do any more of it.
Well, like a graphite mold like that, does it degrade at all, or can you pretty much produce as many as you want, or what's kind of a production run on a graphite mold like that?
Well, I actually am not sure. Yeah, because we normally usually if we are using graphite, we're using it flat. We're not usually using it. This is the first graphite mold I've ever actually had made, and after 75, it's totally held up, and it'll kind of get a little dust layer. It just keeps kind of dusting, but it doesn't seem like it's really losing any of the detail. So I'm actually really curious about that too, but that was kind of interesting when we were selling the client on it because we were telling him, there's a variety of mold materials that we could use, and from expensive to non-expensive. And the least expensive would, of course, be plaster, but it would leave residue, and then you maybe get 10. So we're we're going to have to make a bunch of plasters, and it's not going to look as clean. And then we were talking about wood, which would, be burning out, but still kind of slowly. And so I'm really not even sure how we ended up on graphite. I think that the mold maker recommended graphite. But we've actually been using graphite more and more with a lot of the mold stuff. It works really well, but it has to get you have to heat it up really hot. And in the beginning, I wasn't sure how hot you should get it. I was hitting it with the torch and is this just going to be blow up or melt? I didn't know what was going to happen. But we were had a weed burner in there. You can get it ripping hot, and it the hotter it was, the cleaner it kept coming out. So.
Yeah. So that's just so it doesn't stick to the glass.
It doesn't stick to the glass, right? Yeah.
Do you so when you say you have vent holes and stuff, is that because of inherent moisture in the material you're working with, or?
It's more to punch out the details because the glass, if there's no air, it can't expand. Okay. Because air will get caught in it if there's no holes, right? So there'll be air will get trapped. No matter how much it pushes against it, it won't move. So honestly, this was a 4-sided mold. And it was came apart like triangles kind of, and so there was just really vent holes going down the piece, and it wasn't very specific. And normally if I was making a mold, I'd probably put one here, where the most prominent details are. I would vent, but this was pretty random, and they were pretty pinhole. They kind of blew out the back of the mold, so you could see these divots, but it wasn't a. Yeah, it didn't make any little marks from them at all. Cool. So they were pretty small on it.
Does the design go all the way around, or is it just on this face?
It does. It's 3-dimensional, and it's kind of like 2 hands squeezing a bottle.
So do you see the backside of the hands too?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, and that was actually kind of an interesting design challenge because it was you kind of just see the wrists overlapping, and it was interesting just how to end the design because it's continuous, but it's the body part. So yeah, I don't have any other photos with me of the other side, but this was definitely the more detailed. And then Jeff ended up designing these bags that went with them, and then they kind of got cradled in corrugated cardboard and then their own boxes. And Bushmills sent us like a whole case of Bushmills tape, which is so cool. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but I've got like 50 rolls of like Bushmills tape, and I didn't bring that either. It's great though. It's got like it's got images of like whiskey and scissors and all sorts of really weird stuff kind of going down it.
Too bad they didn't send you a whole case of Bushmills.
They sent us 3 cases. Yeah. Yeah, we had a party for the release, and it was the party for the release was maybe a month or 2 months after the release, and we were trying to time it during, but then like, you know, Justin's girlfriend was going to be out of town. You know, like it was just like we couldn't schedule it because there was lots of, you know, things in the mix. So we ended up doing it we wanted to do it St. Patty's Day, but it ended up in April, I think. And so Bushmills sponsored it, and they sent us like 3 full cases of whiskey, and I had it all laid out on the table, and I'm like, we better get a lot of beer. Like, there's no way this is getting drank in. Like, there's just like, who even drinks whiskey? You know, like, I love Bushmills. I mean, I drink Bushmills all the time. I'm drinking it right now. Oh my God. So I just thought that, you know, I thought it wasn't going to happen that way. But we had a band, and at the end of the night, we had 2 bottles of Bushmills left. And supposedly there was like, you know, soccer moms throwing up. Not, just saying. Are you a soccer mom? You're a basketball mom. It was unexpected people getting sick outside the studio and like dancing. And like I didn't know what was going on because I was like, I'm not drinking, I'm blowing glass.
Where did the name come from?
You know, Justin actually came up with the name, which I was kind of surprised at because I love naming things. And but it was actually, we wanted to call the studio Drop because I thought it would be funny to have tape that said like, don't drop, don't drop. You know, it's like drop or don't drop. But then there was another company out of like Sweden called Drop that was doing modern design. So Justin just kind of randomly was like, how about ask? And just love that it means of or in the manner of. And so it's just kind of a nod to acknowledgement of outside influences, and I just really like that. And I think some people take that as like us admitting that we like rip people off or something. And I'm like, it more means that like we're inspired by, you know, the sky, the sea, you know, things. I mean, we don't really look at other glass so much for inspiration. I'd say we don't look at other glass at all for inspiration. We do look at other glass, but I think it's, you know, you're inspired by things around you in your life, and you're influenced by things that are bigger than you and have come before you and that will always exist, and just kind of a nod to that.
Have you ever accidentally inhaled when you were supposed to be blowing your glass?
I've never accidentally inhaled.
Yeah.
I've only intentionally inhaled. We do occasionally intentionally inhale. There's some pieces that require sucking rather than blowing. But yeah, no, it's just instinctual. You just blow. I don't think you think about sucking. Off the record. You. There's actually we're pretty loose. I think that one of the reasons why we're also like have been successful is that we're really authentically who we are, and I think that's really what like I wanted to mostly talk to you guys about, just knowing what I think people's backgrounds are, that why people are coming here is to learn, and I think that you're probably all creatives and make things, and I think that you know, it's about just being yourselves and knowing like who that is. And we have like a lot of assistants that come to us and they say, well, you know, what's your business plan? I'm like, how do we do what you do? And I said, well, I'm only doing what I'm doing because I'm me, and this is like this is what I want my life to look like. And I think that you need to start from there. And I think a lot of people look instead to like models of things that they think are successful, and they try to start with that. But I mean, it's such a lifestyle thing. And I feel like we're really authentically ourselves all the time, and I love that I get to be like that in our work and, you know, who we are. This slide is like almost invisible, but you know, I think that that's the important part, is what you want your life to be and following that path. And I think that dictates a lot of the decisions that you make, you know. And I think once you know, like, you're here at point A and you're trying to get to point B, it's like the decisions you make are either like going to take you closer to that or farther away. So it's really easy to decide like yes or no on things. And some things are just about, you know, like we need some money, and I'll blow bubbles for money any day. You know, like, I mean, we're not total purists, but I do think about opportunities and when they come as to if they're taking me in a direction that I want my career to go or not. Sometimes I say no, but usually I say yes. And usually Justin says no. And then we like, and then I'm like, oh, he's probably right. I say yes to everything. He says no to everything. So somewhere in the middle we come. I'm not really sure why I put this in. Oh, so I guess why I put this in was, so from doing the collaborations also kind of include architectural work. And here we worked with, this is at Lumber Room, and we worked with felt hat. And so this is the inspiration picture, and you can't see it from there, but it looks like raindrops on a windshield. It's sort of the inspiration. And I could turn, well, I don't know if you could, I'm not going to turn this around, I'm just going to unplug. So that was the inspiration of it. And then, so outside of doing product design and then doing product design collaborations, we also do installation collaborations and architectural pieces. So this is Justin putting up all the raindrops, and this is looking under it, and this is the idea of the raindrops on the windshield. And so what we ended up doing is there's 7 layers, and you can see these all are all aligned. So we did, each layer was a pattern, and we shifted the one on the end to the other end so that they just jogged down this space, and actually kind of beautiful. I kind of think that the lumber room is it's an artistic space in the Pearl. It's right next to Elizabeth Leach, and they're doing artist residencies and exhibits, but I think there's only about 2 or 3 exhibits a year right now. But it's a pretty cool space, and our piece is permanent, and that's the front door to it. And I feel like I'm not sure why I'm showing you guys this stuff, but it's going somewhere, I swear. This was, I guess we're going kind of from concept to finished product, and then I'll take you to what we're working on currently. This was the mock-up that I did for Sephora in the Meatpacking District. And I took a picture of one of the pieces that we made, and I changed the colors and the scales and kind of built this mock-up from it. And that's about as far as my skills in Illustrator go, but it's kind of like effectual, got us the job anyway. So this is the finished piece. And so here with the inspiration was, this is hanging in the fragrance department in Sephora. And so the inspiration was old amphoras, like the original vessels that hold perfume. And so we exaggerated them and modernized them and ombre'd them, which is like, I'm always trying to talk everyone into ombreing things. I'm like, what if we ombre'd the color? And everyone's like, no, you know. And so these guys were like, yeah, we should totally ombre it. So I was really excited about that part. Where you fade one color to the next. So it was like aubergine into fuchsia into apricot into gold. You know, like it kind of did this like shift.
In one piece of glass or in installation?
In installation, I think there were 124 pieces of glass. 31. What was it, Jill? 131. Something like that. Something like that, many pieces of glass, and they were about this big. And this piece was actually really interesting because we installed it in New York, but we didn't go to New York to install it. So we made a map, and we hired some friends of ours to hang it up for us. And so it was pretty complicated. So we had to try to figure out like how to make this work and really easy for them. And so what we came up with was that we would make a map to scale with concentric circles, and then go around the circles and like measure out how many pieces per pie piece per skinny to fat. And so we mapped it out on paper, made marks, and then numbered all the dots, and then we screwed into it in the ceiling and like made sure it was right. Then we numbered all the pieces, and then we sent them the map and all the pieces. So they had to put the map up, put hooks in, and then put the pieces up, but then they had to take the map off. And that part, I still don't really know how they ended up doing it, because I was like, I've got you totally set, like the whole thing's organized until like you have to take the map off. And I don't know, you guys are architects, and like it was like a stone worker and an architect. I'm like, you guys will come up with, You guys will figure it out. So it was kind of scary too, because I was like, if one piece of tape comes off or one piece breaks, we're kind of like, we're in trouble. So we ended up sending them like 3 extra pieces that were just random colors and sizes. And I was like, if something breaks, just shove one of these in one of the holes, and no one will ever know. But nothing broke, and they did a good job. And that's actually all I've got, except for I brought you our most current project as well. And then that's her.
Years ago.
Anyway, I wanted to just leave that up there. Years ago, Jill, one of my closest friends, and also was our studio manager at the time, and did some modeled for the camera a few times. So I guess what I thought was interesting was that our career at the end of it all has kind of come full circle. So in setting this intention that I want to design for other people and other companies,